We are live. Today I've got Dr. Christopher Wells with me, and we've got a great topic. And we're going to be talking about how the landscape is changing for expats. And I know you have probably heard a lot of things are changing, and we're going to delve into them and our personal experiences today. But before we do that, I want to take care of some housekeeping. If you can hear me, be sure to let us know where you're joining from in the chat and that you can hear us. All right. Um, I am really excited because a couple of weeks ago, I launched my Substack newsletter. Now, this is because I am in the process of getting my next book published. I'm looking for a literary agent and I'm going to traditionally publish. And I thought this was the next step in the process. And so, if you're interested in following my journey, my writing journey, the journey of reinvention, creativity, then be sure to check out my Substack and subscribe. Support me in that way. And that is, I'm going to put that on the banner there. And I really appreciate that. All right. The second announcement that I have is that on March 21st, I am having another Women Rising Roundtable. And it is all about courage. It is fearless then, fearless now. A lot of times we have been braver when we were younger, and now we stop and think and hem and haw and don't do anything. And so we're going to unpack that on the 21st. So if that is something you're interested in, be sure to check that out as well. And I'll put that on the screen as well. All right, those are the two things I wanted to cover. Let's check out what we got going on in the chat. Wow, we got a lot of messages. We've got Jess A joining and Lillian Palmer. So good to see you, Lillian. It's been a while. Hope niece is treating you well. And Dion. Hi, Dion. You remember Dion,
Oh,
Christopher?
yeah. Oh, it's great to see some of these familiar folks. Hey, guys.
um, who else do we have?
Joseph
Linda
McLaughlin
Randall.
is one of my folks. He's from Boston.
Who?
Joseph McLaughlin.
Hi, Joseph. Welcome. You see anybody else who's
Not
from
right
your
off the top of
crew?
my head, no.
All right. We've got, who else have we got? Let's see. Linda Randall. Hi, Linda. Linda from Hawaii. So it's early there.
Thank you for being brave enough to get up that early to be part of this today, for sure.
Melissa Lyons, 6936. Welcome. Laura, 8674 from Denver. Welcome. All right. All right. All right. So I think we can go ahead and jump into our topic. Today is a topic I think that you have heard things about how moving abroad seems to be getting more difficult, more challenging. And we wanted to, Christopher and I wanted to kind of address some of the things that you've been hearing from a Spanish perspective, because Christopher's in Spain, and from a French perspective, because I'm in France. If you are new here, my name is Patricia Brooks. I am an American who moved to France in 2018 to find myself. And over the course of the time I've been here, I've started a business to help people build the mindset so that they can make the move abroad, but not only make it, but have success in transitioning and staying as long as they'd like. And I'd like to turn it over to Christopher so he can share a little bit about himself, and then we're going to jump in.
Well, I'm a repeat offender expat because I was an expat here in Valencia, Spain from 2013 to 2015. And then I moved back to the US, where I'm from, for about 6 or 7 years. And then I moved back here in 2021. And my husband and I live here in Valencia, Spain, and are very, very happy with what we're experiencing now, mostly because it is an immense growth process and we both like to learn and be challenged.
And living abroad, you're gonna get some challenges.
Well, I mean, and Patricia and I have talked about this before, but to me, moving abroad is an adventure, and an adventure is 50% sheer terror and 50% excitement and about 25 more percent feeling accomplished. But the sheer terror is a big part of you growing because it forces you into new situations. And to me, that is the most powerful time of being an expat, when everything is new and you have new ideas and you want to explore as much as you can.
Yes, I'm gonna have to get up because my dehumidifier has come on. Can you hear that? You hear extra noise? No? Okay. If it's not a problem, then I will let it go. But it just came on and it's loud. It's loud here. So
Your microphone's doing a great job.
all right, good, good. Um, so thank you for sharing that, Christopher. Would you like to kick us off with some of the things that you've seen that have changed in your town, your city, your in Spain since you've moved there?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have this unique perspective of being here for 2 years and really experiencing the city for 2 years, and then moving away and then coming back. And when you go back to your hometown, it always feels just a weird bit different. Like shoes that don't fit quite the same way anymore. Well, Valencia has made some significant changes. To me, they're changes for the better. Walking and biking areas have been installed on every main street in the city. There are new parks that are larger and more extensive and better maintained. It means also there's a lot of infrastructure construction, but the trade-off is at the end of that construction, a lot of times there are new metro lines or new bus routes or new things that make living in the city even better. Transportation pricing hasn't changed all that much. So that Metro card that I spent $10 for has now become a $7 Metro card in some cases, and it gets me through the city just fine. I don't have a car, and I know that a lot of people feel like that's necessary, but here in a city like Valencia, you don't really need a car unless you're going outside of the city. So the city is more walkable than it ever has been, and that is a huge change that has occurred since I lived here first. And even then, it was walkable. Now it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so it sounds like they've made some really neat modifications for you and your town. For me, it's pretty much the same, except I've noticed that there have been more activities to bring tourists to this tiny 8,000 person village, which, as somebody who is an introvert and who's not a party animal, that can be kind of challenging for me. However, Surrey has always been a lively place in the spring and summer months. It's just even more so, like activities and music festivals seem to be going on all of the time. So that's the one thing that I think I've noticed changing in my town. Yeah.
Well, you've said several times to me that the festivals that y'all have are kind of back to back to back. Admire people who can plan things like that and actually pull them off.
Well, and it's funny because you think, okay, it's not a big city, but it's a pretty happening place. I'm going to ask our viewers, where, if are you already living abroad? Are you planning to move abroad? And if so, where? Can you let us know in the chat? And also, if you could give this video or this live stream a thumbs up, it really helps with the algorithm and gets it out to more people. So I appreciate that. So you want to dig into the 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 meat of our conversation?
Absolutely. And this all came about because Patricia and I were talking. We talk fairly regularly about some of the things that the people that we work with need to know, need to experience. How can we help them? How can we help build bridges? And one of the things that we both experienced are there are a lot of changes in the way you become an expat, at least in Spain, from my perspective. And I have a few stories around that. So, in my experience living here before, the bureaucracy was difficult, but it wasn't as strange as it is now. And the reason I say it's strange is because in the past, um, there was not as much of this, you have to get a previous appointment kind of stuff. Instead, everything was handled kind of in paper. Now it's become a system of electronic appointment making, uh, documents, and things like that, which is great because when I need to make a doctor's appointment, I can do it all online. But the trade off is if you aren't able to connect to the right person at the right time for the right thing, it can be more of a challenge. So let me set the stage. We have a document that registers us in the city. It's called a padrón. And a padrón is something that you go to a particular office with your lease and with some other paperwork, including your passport. And they say, okay, you are registered as living in this location in the city. And the reason you have the padrón is because this is a socialist economy. Money comes from Madrid for every person that lives in Valencia. So the taxes that are used to build some of these new infrastructure pieces that we have, that is in part reliant upon my padrón, my registration. So we have gone through this process multiple times. Um, it- the first time I did it when I lived here, second time when we moved back, and you have to renew it every 2 years. We renewed it, not a problem. The lady said, all you need is this piece of paper and that piece of paper. That's all you need, along with your ID cards. Great, great. So the last time we went, everything had changed. We we had buckled up our boots and gone to the office, and this time um, there was more paperwork. We had to get the signatures of our landlord, which we had never had to get before, and a copy of our landlord's official Spanish ID. So that was a big shift, and it meant that we had more paperwork to do. So that bureaucracy friction went up. The same thing goes for getting an ID card. Now, in the past, you would go to this particular police office and they would give you like one of those pull tabs that you used to get at the meat counter that has like a letter and a number on it, right? A little, and somebody had written dates and times on it. And you had to keep that little piece of paper and you would come back at that date and time and then you could get your ID registration underway.
Mhm.
Of course, you had to have all the paperwork to do that, but that's beside the point. Now you have to get that appointment online, but when those appointments are online and available is a completely different thing because they only open up a few appointments every time they open up appointments. So there for a while, it was 2 p.m. that you had to log on to a particular system, and then it was 8:30 a.m. It was always just like this mystery. Was it on Fridays? Was it on Mondays? And when we're trying to figure this out, like we're talking to different people in the expat community, and there's a tip here and there's a tip there, and eventually we end up with the right date and time, and so we're able to log on and get our appointments. Um, it that that is very new and somewhat challenging, and we've actually had to have friends who were police officers help us understand what we had to do. So that that is a, you know, make friends. That 100% make friends. Now I will tell you that in other cities this is completely different. So I have some friends that just moved to Malaga, and they were able to get their ID card in a week. They didn't need to make it a previous appointment or anything. They just walked to the police station, bing, bam, boom, done. But the padrón, which I walk away from the padrón office with in my hand, it's a piece of paper. They they had to wait several months to get their padrón. So in Malaga, it's different than Valencia, and I think that's the way it is in a lot of these cities because the changes need to be reflected locally. and
Yeah.
every local office can interpret the rules a little differently to do the work they have to do.
Yeah. And I think it's similar here, like the different prefectures, their processing time for visa renewals vary drastically. Where I am in Perpignan, it was 4 or 5 weeks, but I had a friend who waited a year and a half to get her visa renewed. So I think, the different regions, different prefectures, they work at their different pace.
They really do. They really do. And what about you? What are some of the changes that you've seen?
Well, so, in 2026, January 1st was a big day for changes for the French visa process. Because if you're going for a multi-year visa, like a profession liberale or for an entrepreneur visa, then you will have to, your level of French will need to be higher than it was before. So in 2025 and before, you needed to have a, what is it?
A B1
I
or a
don't,
B2?
a A2, I think.
Hmm. So
Uh,
advanced basic. Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna mess this up. Note it's moved up one notch from before, and so that's a requirement. Additionally, there is a civics exam that you have to take. Whereas before it was maybe a conversation, or during the interview process, they would kind of assess that, or even with the certificate that you had to sign that you agreed to, certain things. But now it's a 40 question multiple choice exam that you have to pass in order to, I believe it's after you get for a professional liberal visa, that's 1 year. And then when you go to renew, then it's multi-year. And so at that point, you need to have the language level as well as pass the civics test. And so this year is a big year for me because I have to renew my visa, and I'm going to go for the 10-year card. And I'm also going to go for, yes, and I'm also going to go for citizenship. So for me, I have the B1, I have the B2 level, right? So B1 is the level I need for the multi-year visa or resident card. And I need B2 in order to go for French citizenship. And I think the civics tests might be slightly different, so I'll probably have to take two civics tests. So they're definitely making it harder to, get these visas and these residence cards. And I guess it's just because of the volume of people who want to, and they just seem to be just making it more difficult.
Yeah, and I'm unfortunately, I feel like some people hear about this and they're turned off to move abroad. But I feel like if you are going to make a move somewhere else, these things have got to happen anyway, and you can't control them. So it makes more sense to just accept them as they are and then move forward. Um, if, for example, Valencia is not a cheap place to live. Housing has changed quite a bit here, but it's only going to get more different in the future. So
And I want
if
to stop you. It's
yeah,
changed because of there are more
that's a
expats.
that's a really good question. It is in due in big part to expat gentrification. We have a very diverse international community that lives here. A lot of Brits live here. A lot of Americans live here. There's a whole Russian community. It's from all around the world, and the the people who move here tend to want to purchase homes, multiple homes, and then rent them out, but at the rate that they would have rented them out, let's say in the US. And so what's happening is the pricing of housing and the availability of housing now is really changing quite a bit. You can still find good deals, but you may have to move a little bit further, a neighborhood or two away from the city center to get those good deals. So
Mhm.
it's doable, but in my humble opinion, the sooner you get started, the better.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really how I feel about that.
Mhm.
Um, there's always going to be a change in housing, but there are two best times to plant a tree, right? One
Mhm.
is today, and the other is 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And you can't really vary when you can do a move like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go to the chat and share where some people are planning on moving. Joseph says still planning to move to Valencia. Okay. And Linda is planning or thinking about Nice. Yes. Let's see what else we've got. Laura, we've got Laura, and she's thinking about Tavira, Portugal. Okay.
Hey, welcome to the Iberian Peninsula.
And we've got Ying Ram 0824. I'm planning to move to Spain in October. I'm still working on the exact location, probably Castilla, or my Spanish is not good. That.
Castilla y Leon.
And I plan to stay 2 years minimum. Okay, great. Um, and we've got Rider Skater says, I haven't figured out where in Europe what might make sense on paper could potentially work, but you don't really know till spending time visiting a few locations, looking at the south of France and Spain. That is so true, Rider Skater. You know, a place can be perfect on paper, and then you get there. Well, in fact, for me, when I moved to Perpignan, it was it wasn't just on paper. I had this feeling this was home for me, and it was great for the first year, but it wasn't home for me after that. And so, even having that feeling, I shifted and pivoted. So, good point. Um, you want to you move to then oh I want to ask you, what questions do you have? If you have questions for us, please put them in the chat, because we will do questions and answers at the end, but we'll also try to answer them as we go along. All right.
And I'd also like to know if you've heard something about the country that you want to move to. Have you heard about a changing landscape
Yeah.
issue that you'd like us to at least weigh in on? We may
Hmm.
not have the answer or be the authority, but we can reflect with you for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. What have
I,
you heard?
yeah, we want to know. Um, so in on top of all that, I have to say that for that growing expat bubble that I just mentioned, as an expat, it's a little bit harder to get out of that bubble than it was in the past. So, in the city, like in most cities, you have different zones of the city, and those zones have a particular feel and stores and things like that. If you were to look at Valencia and you were to compare that to Benidorm, Benidorm has a huge British population that has moved there either permanently or a large portion of the year. And speaking English there is expected, kind of, if you're in the tourist area. Here in Valencia, we are starting to see the same thing. I was in a restaurant the other day, and all the tables around me were speaking English, which is really strange for me because the neighborhood that we live in, while we're still very close to the city center, is very local. We don't hear English at all in our neighborhoods. So being in a restaurant and looking around and being like, oh, wait, everyone here speaks English natively. It was very, and it was a pizza place of all things. It was just very strange to experience that. But the trade-off on that is you can move into a neighborhood that is highly expat focused, high expat frequency. And it means that you don't have to learn another language to operate. You don't have to learn another language to go to the grocery store or to go out to eat or to go buy something at a store. However, that sometimes prevents you from having some really powerful experiences in the country that you wanted to live in. I didn't move to Spain to enjoy the United States and Spain. I moved to Spain so that I could enjoy a Spanish lifestyle. And that to me is much more important. I will also say that many of our more public resources uh, are in Spanish and Valencian, which is a local dialect of Catalan. And if you don't understand a little bit of Spanish, and it's very hard to learn Spanish if you're only speaking English in your expat bubble. If you don't understand a little bit of Spanish, you're missing out on key information about the way the city works. So I always encourage people to start learning their language now. Even if they don't know exactly where they're going to land, I will tell you that the experience of learning and acquiring another language in a structured manner suits you in whatever future you have, whether you continue speaking that language or whether you start to learn another one. If you can build good learning habits, you can then transfer those to any language you want to learn.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I just feel like when I think about changes that have occurred, I often think about how the expat bubble within Valencia has grown, and it's showing itself in very different ways, like housing, like we talked about, and also the experiences that you can have in the city now maybe have more of an English or American flair than they did in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a question for you, Christopher.
Oh, how do you
How
deal
do
with the tourist season in Valencia?
you?
So, funnily enough, right now in Valencia, there's the largest festival that we have all year. It's called Las Fallas. And Las Fallas involves a lot of fireworks every day at 2 p.m. in the city center that you can hear throughout the city. A lot of fireworks in local parks, kids walking around with boxes of firecrackers and things like that, throwing them. It is nonstop. Additionally, the city swells to 4 times its normal size. And so we're talking 2 million people in the space that very comfortably sets 700,000. So every year we have to decide, do we stay or do we go? So we stayed 1 year. Great. That was fantastic. Good experience. But since then, we went back to the US 1 year. We went to Lisbon last year. And this year, starting tomorrow, we're going to Cordoba. And we're coming back the day after the festival ends. And so, how do you deal with it? I think a lot of times you deal with it by deciding where you want to live and is that an area that's going to be inundated with a lot of tourist activity? That may be a good thing for you. A lot of people leave for August to avoid tourism because tourism swells during the summer as well. But how I personally deal with it is I tend to retreat further into some of the more local places within the Valencian community um, so that I don't necessarily run into a lot of tourists. I don't go downtown. I try not to go to Rusafa, which is one of the neighborhoods that's very touristy. And by doing that, I kind of am able to preserve my sanity a little bit because otherwise I get a little frazzled.
Yeah, and I bet you've invested in some good earplugs.
Yeah, a large number of them. Yes.
Ah! All right. Another question. This uh, is the Iranian war influencing how American expats are viewed?
I'll let you answer that one first.
Oh! um, I haven't, I haven't felt that impact yet, but maybe I haven't been out and about enough um, to uh, to experience that. Um, but definitely, there's been a change. in not necessarily even since the war, but since Trump too. That I think we got a pass for Trump one, but there's kind of the sentiment of what's going on over there. Yeah,
I,
and
well, and I don't know about you, but Spaniards love to talk about politics, and they have lots and lots of questions that I can't answer. Like, what is going on over there? And I'm like, you notice I live here, right? Like, I have no
yes.
idea.
Mhm.
I hear from friends and family of things that are going on, but I'm not there, so I'm not really qualified to answer a lot of questions about that. Instead, what I feel is that okay, we can talk about this for just a minute, and then I change the topic. Um, it's very difficult for me because um, the U.S. is not the way I had hoped it would be at my age, and that's on me. But I now live in another country. Um, so oof, it's such a loaded question, and it is confusing for Spaniards as well. And I'll tell you that Spain takes a pretty firm view. You may have read recently about the expectation that America would have bases in Spain so that they could control the Mediterranean war theater. And Spain was like, really, no thanks. And that is the sentiment shared by a lot of Spaniards. The American goals are not the goals that Spain has,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
they feel very strongly about
Mhm. We got a comment here. Linda Firth.
that.
I think Christopher has morphed into looking like a native Spaniard. When I'm in France, I tend to tweak my wardrobe to fit in. Tourists stand out. And I have to say, I was looking to optimize a YouTube live stream that's coming up in April with somebody who teaches French. And I put it in YouTube, and there was a video that came up that said, and it was a short. So if you can find it, check it out. You don't need to learn French. You just need to learn how to dress French. And the treatment was just so different on the street, right?
100% correct. My experience in France as well, and I do speak some French, but woo, yeah. Um,
And I want
look,
to say something about your shirt. That is that is a hand sewn shirt by Christopher himself. Didn't he do a good job on that? Look at that.
so
You need a
listen, y'all.
model.
I took up a I know I took up a hobby of sewing about a year ago, and since then I have thoroughly enjoyed myself. But I've made things like coats and shirts and all kinds of other stuff just because it makes me feel very creative and empowered. Um, and for a while there, I was taking sewing lessons, of course, in Spanish. So it was also a good Spanish lesson every time I went to my sewing class.
Yeah.
Um, Writer skater, uh, what does society feel like in Spain and France? In America, many things are so negatively political, it feels suffocating. Do the Spanish and French feel more freedom toward basic rights? I, from my perspective, in Spain, um, where in the U.S. the both the Democrats and Republicans can be considered on the right. Democrats more toward the center, but Republicans more toward the far right. Where here that is a little bit reversed. So you have folks on the left. You still have folks on the right, sure, but the right is still more center. Human rights are still very much a thing. I mentioned before that we live in a socialist system, a socialist economy, and that means that this community is built on very different principles than what we have in the US. It is very much community focused. When we had a major catastrophe a couple of years ago with flooding, and over 200 people were killed, and towns were inundated with mud, people stopped working so that they could go help clean up. And you saw people walking through the streets just covered in mud, holding like big work mops and things like that, that they had just dropped work and gone to do that. And that was perfectly acceptable. I don't think you'd see the same thing in the US right now.
Yeah, and I will chime in. I think that, you know, it's people are freer here to have their own views and be um, not accepted for it. And this is not necessarily politics related, but it kind of speaks to the point. When there was COVID and there were some people who did not want to get vaccinated here in France, and people were protesting that. There were people who were protesting that who had gotten the vaccination. They were standing side by side with their fellow French person because they recognize their right to have their opinion, their view. And so I think that that kind of speaks to that idea that it's less, feels less divisive here, um, to me as well.
And that bleeds into many aspects of your life. Food is less expensive. There are more social services. There's a thing called Universidad Popular, which is the popular university. I go take Valencian classes twice a week for 4 hours a week, and it cost me $20 for the whole year. I mean, there are services after so there are centers for retired people. Then they go on trips and they have learning events and things like that. The idea that everybody should have a voice and your view is valuable and you are a lifelong learner because you live in a place where there's so much history is really encouraged, really supported. And I don't feel like I had a lot of that in the US. And I'm a lifelong educator, right? So to me, that's super important. And that's one of the appeals that I have for living here in Spain.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. All right. So, Christopher, what's next? I lost track of where we were answering all these questions.
These are really good questions. And Dion, you're right. Spain did have a dictatorship, and they know not to go backwards. Um, I will say that in many places in Europe, the trend right now is more focused on moving to the right politically. And I am pleased that people are still very much against that here. They want more of a central kind of way of life, one that focuses on community, one that focuses on who we are as Spaniards as a community and as an identity, not just what the politicians want. So I think that that's great. But thank you for bringing that up. As you can tell, we have a lot of passion around this. It's something that I think is just going to be a factor of our lives for the rest of our lives because the world is changing and no one kind of knows which way it's going to go. I think let's see, we've got about 20 minutes left. We can talk about um, a little bit about healthcare if you'd like.
Okay.
Uh, if that
Yep.
would be good. Um, so I will tell you that the healthcare system has changed. And just to give you a little bit of a story, when I moved here originally, I got a private healthcare called Sanitas, and that was great. It, it basically you pay a very reasonable amount, in my American opinion, and that reasonable amount meant that I could go to the doctor and get the service that I needed kind of whenever I wanted. When we moved back to Spain, we got back on Sanitas, and as a result of that, we we were able to get all kinds of medical care. You know, things like preventative care or things like a colonoscopy for those of us who are over 50. Those things, you may struggle with having to figure out. Well, over time, the private insurances have gone up in price. not just a little bit, significantly. And it's most shocking. So much so that we quit the private insurance and now we go with the public health care. For us, the price jumped over 150% in the 4 years that we were on private health care. And we felt like that was too much. And it really was, frankly, at an American rate of insurance. And instead, we looked at the public healthcare, which is not as prevention focused as American healthcare, but it is incredibly affordable, and I can make appointments with a doctor. I get in, I see the doctor, do blood work. I mean, all the things that you do, and it's just a slightly different process. You may have to wait a couple of weeks before you can see the doctor. That's really the only difference that you have. Here's the funny thing. If I wanted to go see a doctor, just a general practitioner, I could go in there and pay out of pocket for that. And the cost of that out of pocket payment to the doctor is around 25 to 50 euros. Where when I was going to the doctor in the US, my copay was $100 for any visit that I had to the doctor. So the fact that that is much more reasonable if I go out of network for local healthcare is a pretty powerful feeling. I feel like, for example, I like to get just a skin check because my skin cancer runs in my family, so I want a skin check every year. Well, that's preventative care, so I need to find a dermatologist to do that for me, and it's not going to be expensive to do that. So there are changes in the healthcare system, but I don't feel like healthcare is changing so much that it's unattainable. It is still very affordable and very attainable when you come here.
Yeah, and that's interesting to hear that the private insurance have increased so much. For me here in France, we have the carte vitale, and I think one of the things that there are a couple of things I want to talk about changes in healthcare, but I'll talk about the carte vitale because you may have heard that for some people who come on a visitor visa and they are not working and they're not paying French taxes, that the French healthcare system was free. And so they are in the process, France is in the process of closing that loophole because, to come and have access to, the health care system, but not pay into it didn't seem fair. And so this is I think it's for non-European Union residents of France. And so I think they've passed the law. And I think that now the next step is to figure out, well, what is the fee going to be for people who fall into this category? And this was, something that rose into the headlines last year. And, people who are here in France and who are on the healthcare but aren't paying for it, most of the people I've heard have said, oh yeah, absolutely. It's not fair that I get something and I'm not paying into the system, but it still remains to be seen what that will be. So that is a change that is going to be happening at some point. I don't know how soon, but some point. And then the other thing around healthcare for me is when I moved here, I was so fortunate to have a landlord who was also a doctor, and I lived right above his doctor's office. And so, I had a doctor baked right in. Well, a couple of years ago, he retired, and I'm living in a small town. And even when I look for doctors in Perpignan, I haven't been able to find a primary care doctor. So I'm in a medical desert now. And one of the things that I think has attributed to that is there was a limit to the number of medical students who could, be in a medical class. And so over, 40 years or 50 years, now the doctors are retiring, and there's not enough doctors, in addition to the fact that, some doctors just don't want to be in rural areas. There are a couple of movies, French movies, that are that have that as a theme. One of them is Médecin de Campagne, that speaks about that. And then there's another one. It's a funny one. I have it noted. I think I have. Oh, Bienvenue, Marley Gaumont, and that talks about an African doctor who um, is gets stationed in this rural country and country town, and he struggles to be accepted, and it's based on a true story. And so it's not like medical deserts are new, but it's new to me. It's new to me.
Sure.
Hmm.
And you want to have a level of comfort when you have a consistent medical doctor. For me, my medical doctor was assigned to me, and that that's pretty common. So if I don't like my doctor, well, that's nice. You still have to go to that doctor. I will say that there's this concept of funcionario, which is a government employee, and funcionarios, they know at the beginning by becoming a government employee like a public health doctor, that they can be placed anywhere.
Mm.
So I have friends who are doctors, but they take the metro out to the end and work in a town at the end of the metro, which is, like an hour away.
Mhm.
But that's kind of part of the gig. I have friends who are teachers who've been stationed in all kinds of different places, but that's the way it works here in Spain. And the changes that I've seen is that more people want to be in the cities. They want to be closer to the uh, larger cities, and I think that's probably contributing to your doctor situation in France as well. And I'm sure that that is also occurring within Spain too.
Yeah.
There has to be a higher concentration there.
Yeah, and so there's the shortage of doctors because of the limits they placed on that are now no longer the case, but it'll take time to, you know, have doctors, become doctors. In addition to the fact that if schools don't have the place for them, it doesn't matter, right? So I mean, there's that aspect, but they were also talking about, having doctors being placed wherever, and
Hmm.
that could cause people to say, well, I want to be a doctor, but I don't want to be in, you know in the boondocks, so maybe I just don't do that. So that could be something that could be a problem. But one thing that my town has tried to do is they have this, it's not a clinic, it's a, it's like a trailer in the parking lot of the clinic, where for that has general practitioners. And I think they were supposed to have 4 general practitioners. And I started going there because I didn't have a general practitioner. Well, I
Hmm.
have one in my my file, but I don't go to that doctor anymore because he was not a good doctor.
Hmm.
But because I have somebody on my file, they told me, oh no, well, you can't come here anymore because we are still short staffed. We were supposed to have a third doctor come. They decided not to come. The second doctor that we have is going on maternity leave. So we're down to 1 doctor. So the idea was a good idea, but
The
staffing for
implementation may follow at a later date.
that. Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, but I'm pleased with the healthcare system in terms of what they take care of. I have a mutual insurance that covers what the carte vital doesn't cover, and that has of course gone up every year. However, it went up this year, but it wasn't supposed to. Mine went up this year, but for whatever reason, somebody said, "Oh no, you can't increase rates this year." So at the end of this month, I got to call my health insurance company, my mutual, and say, "Okay, when am I going to get my €50 refund?" And so it was like, what? Is this possible?
I know. It's always kind of fun to find those things out, but sometimes you really have to gird your loins going into an office or making a phone call to try to get what your needs are recognized. You and I spend a lot of time talking about the why. Why do I want to live abroad? What is our reason for living abroad? And a lot of times it comes down to things like lifestyle, like quality of life, um, like social networks, like different kinds of um, comfortable living situations, like lower cost of groceries. Those are all real things that you can still get in France and in Spain and in many other places around the world. And I, for me, my why has still been focused on I want to live in a place where I feel like I'm part of a community. And I definitely feel like that. Um, there was a question, what would I miss most if I moved away from Spain? And I have to say that even though I am a foreigner, an extranjero, living in Valencia, Spain, or in Spain in general, I am expected to be part of the community. Um, it is just really crazy how inclusive people are here. Oh, come on, let's go. And I'm like, I don't really know you. Yeah, we're going on vacation. You should go with us. And they mean it. And they mean it. And so it has become a different way of life. And I feel more connected to people than I really ever did in the US. My friendships are different and they have different characteristics. And I really thrive in those situations.
Yeah, yeah. And rider skater, I think what I would miss most if I moved away from France, well, it would depend on where I would go to. I'm assuming I would go back to the U.S. Would be the before I moved to France, I didn't realize that I was feeling this undercurrent of stress or anxiety or tension, right? Because you're in it. If you're in it all the time, sometimes you don't really notice that. And so when I moved to France, when I would visit France, even, like I could feel kind of like a relief. And I think that would be the thing that I would miss most is that feeling of, just not having that tension or that undercurrent of tension. And that, that, Christopher, you spoke about quality of life. I mean, that really ups the ante with quality of life there.
Yeah, and Joseph mentioned earlier that he feels like as an older person, he is in a place where being fearful is kind of one of the considerations of his lifestyle. Um, and I don't feel like as I get older, fearful is the word I'm going to use for my life. Um, like I said, there's so many different things that you can do as a retired person here that you are expected to participate in the community. And I am really thrilled about getting older in part because of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, Joseph, I can definitely understand living in a state of high anxiety. I'll tell you that when we moved, it was right when the last two Senate seats were being decided on, right after Biden had been elected, and so we could not escape political messaging wherever we went. It took about a year of detox here in Spain where that wasn't being thrown up in our face every day. Oh, you need to vote for this person, vote for that person. They're a bad guy. They're a good guy. Whatever. And I'm so thankful for that relief. And I think that you'll feel that relief too.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a comment here. There are many places in the U.S. with community-based sensitivities, and if you're in one of them, wonderful.
Yeah, I tried to find them in the places that I lived, and I didn't really have much success.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just me. I mean, the places that I've lived have included places in Florida and in Atlanta and in Chicago, and it was just really difficult to find my tribe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Other questions? We're almost at an hour here. If you've got other questions, be sure to drop them in the chat so we can address them. Anything else you want to share, Christopher?
Well, if you are interested in embarking on this journey as a clever expat, I welcome you into that. You can go to my website, cleverexpat.com, and I do have, I can put a link in here of a, uh, nope, that's not it. I can't. You can go there. You can get a free 20-minute consultation where we just chat and figure out what your goals are. And if you want to work with me to help you kind of achieve your goals, whether it's moving to Spain or moving to somewhere else in the world, I can help you get started on the path and understand what you're going to have to uh, overcome in some cases and what you're going to have to rejoice about in others. So I really feel like it's an opportunity to get to know you. If you want to make an appointment with me, I'm thrilled about it. Let's do it.
And check it out. I post. Go ahead and drop that in the chat too, so that they have your website link. And I just want to reiterate that on March 21st, I'm doing a Women Rising Roundtable. That's Fearless Then, Fearless Now. It is for women who, in their younger days, have felt more courage and boldness than they do now, and they now tend to overthink and hold themselves back and feel like they are not being true to themselves or authentic. We're going to unpack that. We're going to have some techniques and strategies to move through that so that you can re-embrace that boldness that you had, and really um, experience life the way that you know you were meant to. So you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/roundtable, check that out. There are, I think, four, maybe five spots left. It's a small group of 9 people, 9 women, and we have pre-work activities, and then we discuss, and it's always, always, always a great conversation. So I'd love to see you there. All right.
Well, and let me
And
just kick in here. Hang on.
mhm,
Let me just
mhm.
kick in here. I've worked with Patricia before in a classroom setting, and she's dynamite. So if you have an opportunity to take advantage of her time, do it. Do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. I think we've got at least one more question I
You may
saw
have to
coming.
approve I put a link in the chat. You may have to
Oh, I
approve
have
it.
to approve it?
I think so.
I don't,
Either way, you can find it. You can definitely find it on my website.
well, this
So,
is this is the link to, can you put it in the private chat and I'll put it?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I don't see it. Okay, here we go.
Patricia is clearly the boss on this one.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to post anything.
Well, I'm paying the big bucks for the software, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Andrea, I'm so glad that you have more to think about, but you don't have to think about it alone. People like Patricia, people like me, we're here to help, and we want to help. This is what really makes us happy.
All right, here's the question. Do you believe it's easier for retired seniors to immigrate to France or Spain because of fewer rules and regulations for people not working but with established income versus working Americans?
Oof. Okay, so my feeling on this is I think it would be easier to move to Spain um, on something called a non-lucrative visa. A non-lucrative visa is basically a retiree visa. If you move to Spain and you're still working, that requires some different choices about the visa that you want. We have a digital nomad visa. We've got something called an autonomo, which is like a self-employed visa. You can do either of those, sure. But the non-lucrative visa is specifically built for folks with fixed regular incomes who have their own money and just want to immigrate to Spain.
And I think that, with the people that I've worked with, it just seems easier when you don't have to figure out your income stream, right? It's one less thing you have to do. Here in France, I'm on an entrepreneur visa or profession liberal visa, where I started my own business. And so, starting your own business and getting it up to speed and up to snuff is a lot of work. And so, it's rewarding, but if I were retired, okay, I think it might have been easier. So just in terms of thinking about, okay, how am I going to finance my life abroad? I think it may be easier.
Well, wouldn't it be nice if we were all independently wealthy?
Yes. Let's see if there are any other questions before we go. Oh, Lillian had a question, a fun question.
So Lillian, I'm a vegetarian. Let's just start there. I'm a vegetarian, been a vegetarian for wow, 30 something years. And I the one thing that I haven't been able to get anywhere else that I've lived is tostada con tomate, which is uh kind of a long piece of baguette type bread, olive oil, crushed tomato, literally tomato put into a blender and gone, "Rrr, rrr, rrr," and that's it, and salt. And it is the most, to me, is the most satisfying food ever. You can throw cheese on there if you like. You can have some peanuts on the side, whatever, but it is delicious and I really love it.
What is it called?
Tostada con tomate.
Okay. And is it a local dish for Valencia, or can
Oh
you
no,
find
it's any bar in Spain would be able to provide that.
it? All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. I think we covered them all. If you left a question and I didn't see it, now's your last chance to drop it in. Christopher, it's always a joy to have these live streams with you. I think you said that we're going to be doing another one. Do you remember
Yep,
the topic?
not yet.
Well, no, no, because you said it was um, something about a time machine.
Oh, if you could go back and talk to yourself at the very beginning of the
Yeah.
expat process, what would you tell yourself to pull yourself off the ledge from all those times? So, yes, I think time machine planning for your expat life is a definite interest that I want to have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody who joined us live. If you're watching from the future, you're watching the replay, thank you for watching. It's great interaction, and great questions. And if you have not yet, don't forget to like this, because again, it helps with the algorithm. And oh, there is one last thing I want to share with you, is that on the 26th of March, I am doing another live stream with Fabian from Fab, the insurance guy, the French insurance guy, and we're going to talk insurance. So be sure to check that out. You can look on my channel and go to the live stream tab, and you can schedule a reminder for that. That's going to be an interesting one too. So if you're moving to France and you're wondering how you get insurance, that's going to be a good one for you. All right. All right. I don't see any other questions coming through. So thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share with all these folks. And if you're attending and this is your first time, I'm so glad you're here. It really is a treat to share some of these ideas with new folks. And if you're experienced, and for some of you, I know you, it's also great to see y'all too. I really think that moving abroad is one of the best decisions of my life, and I would love to have you feel similarly.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice parting words. Well, thank you, everybody. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.